Hi everyone, this is Patrice and welcome to A Plus Exquisite Decor. I am super excited to share with you the item that I created. It is a diamond tufted headboard with 4 diamond buttons. This item consists of board, and more board, along with foam, buttons, and fabric to name a few of the basic materials used. Because, as I mentioned before, I was doing diamond tufting. This is the final piece of item that I made for a very good friend of mine who was doing some major decorating of her space. I have videos linked in the description below of other items I made for her as part of her red and black decorating scheme. But I decided to save the best for last. And as always, there's a story. So here it is. My friend and I have known each other for the past 10 years. We met in college and spent 3 years together in the same drama group. And this is where our initial bonding began. After school, we went our separate ways and practically did not see each other. But we still maintained a virtual connection. She became my friend and motivator, and I became hers. She even tripled for me as the sister I never had. She has always been supportive of my artistic and creative inclinations. And so, almost 2 years ago, when I made my very first tufted headboard, she got excited and told me that I would be the one to make hers in the future. Even her 4-year-old son at the time, who is quite expressive, was impressed. He said, "Auntie, I want you to make a king bed for me," referring to the headboard. Due to all that she needed to address at that moment, we both did not know when it would come to fruition. But nothing happens before the time, and I was honored when the request was officially made, because she had other options, but remained loyal to me despite hearing some negatives about the look of a precious headboard of mine. As you might already know, I am one who stands for constructive criticism, but those comments were beyond brutal. But being the optimist that I am, I took them in a positive way and did my very best for my friend, her son, and also to improve my skills. And here goes. I started out with plywood and measured all the dimensions I needed for a queen size, while bearing in mind the design she sent me. I made sure to do all the measurements and markings that I needed, so I could take the board outside once and do all the necessary cutting and drilling before I took it back in. These included the points to be drilled for tufting and the design itself, for which I took a cardboard box and made templates to create the shapes needed. I used a circular saw to make the straight cuts. After which, I used a jigsaw to make the curved cuts. Up next was the power drill to drill the holes for tufting. And this is what I came up with. I was quite pleased at this stage, considering I had only cut once and did not have additional tools for refining. A sander would have been very helpful, but the cuts were actually impressive. Looking back at the design that was sent to me, I realized that the plywood alone would be too thin to stand on its own. So I decided to increase the thickness, and this is how I went about doing it. I cut a length of 1x3 board into 2-inch blocks and cut as many as was desired. I then set them around the entire top and sides of the design. I glued them on with wood glue. I went on further to secure them using a drill to create small holes. Then I used a hammer to drive nails in them. To give the newly created thickened edges a cleaner look and make them easier to work with, I added 2-inch strips of Salitex, which is pliable, right around. And I secured the strips using wood glue and screws. After the glue dried, it was time to add the foam. I attached 2 layers of 1-inch foam using industrial spray adhesive. I attached 1 layer first, lining it up the best possible way to get it to fit the shape of the design, considering it was not an exact fit. Then I placed the second layer on the structure in a more intricate manner. Next, I inserted wooden skewers through the back by way of the drilled holes and allowed them to protrude through the foam, where I marked the points where they protruded using a marker. I used a 1-inch circular object to mark around each point to guide me when cutting out the foam, which I did using a box cutter. When I was finished cutting the holes in the foam, I covered the foam section with batting to make the fabric easier to work with. I attached it using my staple gun. I then opened up the areas in the batting above the holes. The fabric followed next. I used black faux leather, which looks very exquisite. I wanted to make the perfect diamond tufts. So I measured every inch of the fabric in relation to the diamonds on the board. I gave each a 2-inch allowance with additional allowance for the edges, especially the sides, which I knew beforehand would be a bit tricky and needed sufficient allowance to work with. I took needle and strong thread and pierced through all the points on the fabric. If you ever decide to go along with this method, it's best to use a contrasting color thread. This method is totally optional, but being the perfectionist I am, I had to do it. I did not want to get anything wrong. I then started pulling the threads through the holes in the board row by row. And the diamonds were created almost instantly, with need for a little manipulation. The thread was firmly secured using a staple gun. After I completed all 6 rows, only the edges were left. The top and bottom were the easy parts, but the sides were a bit more challenging due to the fact that the fabric had very limited stretch in only one direction. But with God's help, patience, and some manpower from my brother, I got those sides in. Then came my very favorite part, the buttons. I used beautiful Faux diamond gems that I bought online. The link for them can be found in the description. I cannot emphasize enough how beautiful those buttons are and how much they sparkle. I will definitely be using them again. I added the buttons with the same strong thread I used before, then pulled them through with a needle and fastened the strings with the staple gun like I had previously done. To make it easier for me, I put all the string buttons first, then pulled them through and finished off by stapling them consecutively. Looking back at the video, it was an oddly satisfying procedure. After adding the buttons, I was then on the home stretch. I cut the strings off the back and then covered the entire back with black lining fabric. And here it is. I covered 2 pieces of 3x1 board with faux leather to become the supporting legs. And I also covered Salitex to become the base. And this is how it looked after being fully assembled. And of course, here is my son displaying the finished product. I then disassembled the pieces and wrapped it up for delivery. I am very grateful to my friend for giving me the opportunity to make this item for her. And I am glad that I took the negatives and turned them into positives instead of becoming discouraged. I am pleased that this turned out very strong and very beautiful, because it was made with determination and love. I know it will work well together with the other items that she has, and she and her son will love it. And now I know I can only get better at mastering this art. I have so many ideas that I will be working on soon. Next up is my DIY sectional sofa. So please click the notification bell to receive all my new uploads. I thank you so much for watching, and please come back for my next video. As always, live good, love God, and keep being creative.